Hi, today we're going to take a look at Chuck Norris Karate Kommandos #1 from Star Comics, which was a Marvel imprint that had more of a child friendly slant. They were meant for young readers. Marvel had their own properties for Star Comics, like Planetary, Top Dog, etc. But they also did a whole ton of licensing of whatever the cartoons and toy lines of the time were out. And Chuck Norris Karate Kommandos was fairly big for a couple weeks in 1986, but had a full campaign of a cartoon, a toy line, and a comic book, as you see here. It says Star, the New World in the Marvel Universe. Now, one thing that's fairly remarkable about Chuck Norris Karate Kommandos is that um, it was penciled by Steve Ditko for the first 3 or 4 issues. Legendary Steve Ditko, of course, creator of Spider Man, The Creeper, Doctor Strange, etc. Uh, he came and went from Marvel, and I guess when he was there around 1986-87, he was penciling Chuck Norris. And here you got a great cover of Chuck Norris being surrounded by gun-toting ninjas. And Chuck Norris, you know, the whole Chuck Norris Karate Kommandos thing didn't last very long. There was a cartoon, just like all toy lines usually had. The cartoon was 5 episodes. What was going on there was it was meant to air from Monday to Friday, after school or before school, and that wasn't unusual. GI Joe started out that way for 2 years, until they got a full 65 episode run. Um, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles started out that way. The year after this comic came out, it was a 5 episode run, and then it was a success in different markets, and then they did a full run. I guess Chuck Norris Karate Kommandos just fell victim to the glut of all of the toys and cartoon franchises around 86, 87. There were a ton of them. And Marvel did comics on most of them. I remember Air Raiders, which didn't even get a cartoon. There's a whole slew. So Chuck Norris and his Karate Kommandos, which was a bunch of commandos that fought terrorists, of course, spelled incorrectly, of course. That didn't last very long in the mid to late 80s. Whenever I see CN, I know it stands for Chuck Norris, but I always think of Cartoon Network. And right off the bat, you see in the interiors, um, the color is Glynis Oliver. I am not okay with the highlighter yellow for the hair. I think the hair color here is a lot more natural. Um, and of course, you see the Fruity Pebbles Raiders of the Fruity Pebbles commercials. I don't know. I guess they still make Fruity Pebbles and Cocoa Pebbles. Um, there was one of the big Flintstones brands, and I guess it's left over from when Flintstones was one of the powerhouse franchises of kids cartoons. Um, they always did spoofs and things. The other day, I saw a Star Trek spoof that was animated. I don't know. I can't remember if they did an animated Raiders of the Fruity Pebbles Indiana Jones take. They call him Bedrock Jones here, of course. The formula is um, Fred is sitting down to eat some cereal. Barney steals the cereal, disguised as somebody, or cons his way into doing it. Then Fred gets mad and chases Barney. I don't know why Barney just can't buy cereal himself. Maybe it's a sad commentary on cost of living. I don't know. So most of these kid franchises had a kid that was supposed to be a proxy for the kids watching, and they never were. This kid is called Too Much, and he's too annoying. He is obsessed with Chuck Norris. He's drawing him, or he's looking at a picture or something. I don't know. He's staring at a picture, and the teacher's trying to teach class. He fantasizes about fighting the main villain of this franchise, who was called Super Ninja, who had fabulous hair. And for some reason, they're going on a field trip to an anti terrorist conference the next day. And this is right out of Stripes for me. they're going to show off this new anti-terrorism vehicle, which is basically an RV. Well, something that's disguised as an RV, but has all sorts of like different weaponry and technology to combat terrorists. Sure, okay. And the only reason why they're all going to this anti-terrorist conference is because um, too much has connections with Chuck Norris. And here you have a laser tag ad. Laser tag was huge in the mid 80s. I think people just like the concept of it rather than the execution. You know, just wearing all that crap was too much. There were laser tag parlors, and I know, I mean, beyond the branding of laser tag, there are still laser parlors around. We have one not too far from us. I don't know how it's fared during the whole pandemic and everything, but there was a cartoon for laser tag, as there was for most things. I loved Laser Tag Academy. I thought that was a great show about a girl from the future who's tracking a criminal from the future who goes into the past to like 1986 or whatever it was, and she meets with her ancestors and they all fight this bad guy. I love that show. That will never come to any sort of home video or anything, but I adored it for whatever reason. It was a Ruby Spears thing. Um, I never really watched Gumby and Pokey. I know it was very big when I was a kid, but I don't know who played it. I know of it. So terrorists smash into the classroom. It's ninjas with Uzis, etc. And they're trying to get Chuck Norris in there to catch him or kill him or whatever. Here's an ad for Captain Crunch. Back in the 80s, they were trying to capitalize on the sort of adventure action cartoons of the time by creating a supervillain for Captain Crunch to fight. I think his name is Sogmaster or something, and these guys are the Soggies, and they sog your cereal. That's their big deal. Here, Spider-Man's teamed up with Cap, but Cap is missing. I say Cap, it's Captain Crunch. So there was a campaign I remember in the animated commercials that Captain Crunch was missing, and you had to follow clues and solve them or something like that. Here it says you could be one of the 10,000 winners to share $1 million. So you'll never win $1 million. You have to share it. Yeah, I mean, I love Captain Crunch anyways. I don't know how this would have driven sales. I remember they did package toy versions of these soggy guys, which was a sort of sticky plastic, and you could fling it at things and pick things up with it. I had one of those. So they were marketing, toys and stuff for Captain Crunch. There's a whole bunch of ads for comics. This whole thing with the free catalog, etc., seems to emphasize the collectability of comics. And that sort of element was always around. I would just want to read the comics, though, but it talks about what's first printing and what isn't, and how great the condition is for things, etc. I like that they lead with G.I. Joe here. G.I. Joe was a very well received comic. It was just well written. Here are some of the team of Karate Kommandos. Tabby is a sumo wrestler. Big dumb guy is the stereotype and archetype they're going for here. I think it's Kemo or Kemo. He's a samurai type of dude. And I think this guy's name is Reed, who's just a strong man or something. Very generic team characters. Chuck Norris had a dog wolf type of creature here. So they're all going to go off to the school and rescue the kids. And Pepper is involved, who was the female. I don't know if they made a figure on her. It was touch and go whether or not they'd make the female characters as toys. The bad guys are very much goofballs. They're not very threatening at all. They bicker amongst each other, and then they sort of cower in fear of Chuck. Oh my gosh, it's Chuck Norris. The problem with Star Comics, I found, was that they geared too much and too far into the kiddie set. And I I did appreciate that things like Transformers and G.I. Joe were under the Marvel banner, which meant that you got more serious stories that took you seriously and didn't talk down to you. Um, Most everything else, when Star became a thing, um, if there was a cartoon or a toy line that you liked, it became a Star comic, and that meant that everything was kidified, which I didn't like. So I was glad that G.I. Joe and Transformers didn't fall into this. Yeah, I don't get what this is. Coinage history is made when the U.S. Mint produced 7 different cents in 1982. So they're gonna, if you send them money, they're gonna give you a display with the 7 different cents. Um, I don't know. I don't know if that's true or not. Here's Steve Ditko, just drawing action scenes with Chuck Norris. I don't know if he appreciated being on this series or not. This just seems like, like we're gonna pay you if you just do this. He just wanted a job, perhaps. And here's more just fighting Chuck Norris style, and he's like, next time, think twice before you threaten a bunch of kids, with his highlighter yellow mustache and mullet thing. They threaten the teacher, but of course Chuck Norris, punches out the dude. He shoots a book, which he's very upset by. Here's an ad for one of the many, many, many Choose Your Own Adventure knockoffs back in the day. This one was cool. If you had a cool cover, then you were good. This Escape from Tenopia. Tenopia is a planet somewhere, and so this one, I think this one is Tenopia Island. I think this one is trapped in the Sea Kingdom, and this has like a dude with a terrifying fish face with a giant mouth and teeth, and like a person's like a human's body, and here's a shark with a man's face. So it's like monsters basically. I remember reading these. These were cool. All those choose your own adventure things were cool. They were discouraged by teachers because they weren't real books, and like maybe you'd read like 4 pages and finish it, right? With the paths that you would pick. But yeah, there's a whole bunch of them. Pick your path was one, etc., etc. Here's the bullpen bulletin for this month, and it's around January or so. So here, Jim Shooter talks about how him and Stan Lee were on ABC's 2020 a few weeks ago, celebrating their 25th anniversary. And he writes in length here about how he was upset that there was no mention at all of Jack Kirby and Steve Ditko, even though they mentioned them repeatedly in their interview. He apologizes, saying, they're not in charge of the edit, and what 2020 wants to do, etc. I thought this was interesting. There's no reason for him to lie here, but I think, for years and years, there was a movement and swing to try and take some shine off of Stan Lee and recognize that Kirby and Ditko and other artists birthed the Marvel Universe as well. Stan Lee, of course, contributed, but like, let's talk about Jack Kirby, let's talk about Steve Ditko, etc. Here's a checklist. These were always fun to read, see if there's something I was missing. At one time, I bought basically their entire line. All of this is all Marvel proper, I guess. There's Cloak and Dagger. There's G.I. Joe and Transformers. Spider-Man Digest. They made digests in the 80s, and they were poorly printed. They were almost unreadable. Like the colors just separated from the lines all the time. Howard the Duck limited series. This is a couple years after the movie, the disastrous movie. The name, I have a whole bunch of those. Marvel Saga was it was Grand Design before Grand Design. Basically, they were trying to streamline a narrative for the Marvel Universe. They ended around the Galactus trilogy, basically. G.I. Joe Order of Battle, I think, is the sort of who's who of G.I. Joe. Transformers 24. There's a whole bunch of Transformers, like comics here, Transformers Universe. I think there's a Transformers the movie. Um, they're all in Transformers at this point. It's 1987. Official Handbook of the Marvel Universe, Transformers Digest, which had the same printing issues, in my opinion. Um, Marvel Magazine's Marvel Age, which I bought a lot of. That's basically Marvel's own sort of what they're doing at that point in the company. It was comic sized. Marvel Fanfare, Savage Sword of Conan, and Savage Tales were magazine format. Epic Comics, Swords of the Swashbucklers, Gru the Wanderer, Boz Chronicles, Elektra Assassin, the limited series ElfQuest, and Still Grip Starkey, which is a character you'll probably never see get his own series or movie. He was a big construction guy. That was a. Now Marvel had a lot of quirky characters, which are fun and interesting to revisit. Star Comics with all the cartoon tie-ins. So you got Defenders of the Earth, which was it was Mandrake the Magician, Flash Gordon, and the Phantom. Masters of the Universe, of course. This is after the DC one, I guess. Peter Parker, the Spectacular Spider-Ham, great comic. Everyone in the Marvel Universe is an anthropomorphized animal. Chuck Norris and his Karate Kommandos, which we're reading here. Ewoks, which is based on the cartoon at the time. Muppet Babies, based on the Emmy Award-winning cartoon. Care Bears, and Inhumanoids. One thing I didn't like sometimes when they did cartoon tie-ins is, like, for Inhumanoids is basically the pilot, rather than new stories. It's just the pilot of the cartoon series adapted. New Universe was just that. It was a brand new Marvel Universe separate from the Marvel Universe that had Spider-Man, etc. It had its own characters, which are all long forgotten now. Night Mask, Kickers Inc., which is a football team. Mark Hazard Merc, DP7, Justice, Psy-Force. I think Psy-Force was the one where it's like 5 guys that can merge their minds to form a guy. It was like Captain Planet, sort of. Spitfire and the Troubleshooters, and Starbrand, which I liked a lot. This didn't last very long. It lasted, I think, 2 or 3 years. Graphic novel, there's a Dracula graphic novel. There's a time when Marvel produced a lot of Dracula stuff, which is really good. And Marvel Universe trade paperback, so collecting the Handbook of the Marvel Universe. Right, and they fight the bad guys and win, and everyone laughs too much. Very kiddie fair, not as action packed and taking the material at least somewhat serious, so that I can take it a little serious. But hey, I found I had a stack of these, so I guess I was into it. I don't know. Inhumanoids and Defenders of the Earth are coming up here. And here, this is sort of the bullpen for Star Comics. And it's Tom DeFalco telling everyone about the wonders of Comic Cons. I think they're trying to push that. It was still a fairly new concept for young readers getting into Marvel and stuff. So they're encouraging people to come out to Comic Cons and stuff. Here you can subscribe to Star Comics. I don't know what Animax is. I'll have to look that up after. Care Bears, Chuck Norris, Defenders of the Earth, Droids, which was the other Star Wars Saturday morning cartoon at the time, Ewoks Heathcliff. No one could dare terrify the neighborhood, but Heathcliff just won't be outdone playing pranks on everyone. That theme song is imprinted in my skull. But it's based on that cartoon more than just Heathcliff, the comic strip. He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, Hug-a-Bunch, which was a line of dolls that hugged you or whatever. And there wasn't a cartoon, there was a very crazy live-action 1-hour pilot, way overproduced for what it was. You can look it up on YouTube. It's hilarious. Inhumanoids, Muppet Babies, Peter Parker. Popples, which we'll get to in a second, Thundercats, and Top Dog, which was Marvel's own thing. That's Peter Porker right there. There's Heathcliff. And here's a Watermelon Jolly Rancher with some sort of BMX Pro team or something. It's not going to make me buy a Jolly Rancher, but sure. Here's the Popples. It was a short-lived toy line and cartoon line as well. Basically, it's these creatures that can fold in on themselves and create like a pouch or a ball. Sure. It was a thing for a couple of years. It's funny, my wife remembers this, and I remember liking the cartoon a lot for whatever reason. But they had their own comic from Star Comics. So I hope you enjoyed looking through Chuck Norris Karate Kommandos as penciled by Steve Ditko. Take care.